Retweet. Rockfin, did you miss me? Did you miss me, Rockfin? I missed you.
Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And you can catch me here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And what's up, guys? It's been a minute, right? It's been a minute. I missed you guys on Friday and on Monday, but I'm back home in the land of Duncan and FUs. I'm back home in Massachusetts. All right, really quick, want to give out shout outs to people in the chat. Got a great show tonight. I am doing a special call-in segment after the stream tonight since I missed Friday. So should be a good time. We got a lot of things to talk about. Shout out to Dabby Dab says, what's going on, Sabby fam? Greetings, Hannah G says, Sabby's back. I'm here. The song by AC/DC, what do they say? I'm back in black. Is that how it goes? I'm back in black. Shout out to Butterfan says T-minus 13 minutes and counting. Shout out to Fred. Hi, Sabby. Your daily shows keep getting better and better. I miss you when you're gone. I missed you guys too, man. It's weird. Like if I miss a night, it just feels weird. Like something is out of sorts. Shout out to Ben, who's a Sabby member, says, it's time for Sabby. Yay. You have been missed. Glad you're back. What's going on, Rodrigo? How tall is Sabby? I am 5'5". And I noticed that when I was at the rally, I was like, some people are shorter than I thought they were, and some people are much taller than I thought they were. What's going on to Lawrence Johnson, who's a Sabby member, says, Doobie Doobie Door 2024. Congrats, Sabby. Thank you so much. I'll get into that later. Shout out to Yipper99 says, tea time. I got my cup right here. It is time for the tea. What's going on? Peggy says, yay, Sabby is back. So happy, but love the hands of Assange protests. Off Assange protest. Sabby's speech was spot on. Thank you so much, Peggy. Shout out to Eric. What up, everybody? What's going on? Wesley says, oh. Shout out to CBC Voter says, happy Tuesday, Sabby Sabs. What's going on? Go Start said, liked and shared. Good vibes. Please do me a favor and hit that like button, guys. Shout out to Bad Fella says, Sabby. Bad Fella. What's going on? Joe says, hi, perfect people. Greetings, Terry says, hi, fam. Shout out to Eric T. Red, who's a Sabby member, says, happy Tuesday to all lefty friends. And Eric was phenomenal this weekend, helping me at the Julian Assange rally in D.C. This is not something I could have done on my own, and Eric can attest to that. There were some technical difficulties, but doing something like that is a lot better if you have better equipment, which I do not have. I stream from my phone when I'm out and about. And the quality is not as great when you use your phone versus if you have an actual camera that you can stream from. I'm not at that point yet, but one day I'll be able to get a camera for when I go out into the field. What's going on, JM? Thanks so much for the super sticker. JM's also a Sabby member. Shout out to Emoji Goes, Sabby is back in black. I really am. I'm wearing black and I'm back. Shout out to Duncan, was tuned into the Vanguard the other day and the chat was full of RB and comrades. Happy to see us everywhere. That's right. Solidarity, Duncan. What's going on, Bad Cookie? Sabby, I had to check into rehab. I was going through Sabby withdrawal. I'm so sorry to hear. Sorry to hear. Maybe it was like that time I quit coffee. Yes, at one point in time in my life, I used to drink coffee, if you guys don't know that, but I did. What's going on, Brent Hudgens? Glad you made it back safe, and I was feeling it was all worth it. Absolutely. Shout out to Steve, says, hello, everyone. Greetings, Roman, says, hello, fam. What's going on, Where Pilgrim, says, hey, everybody. Shout out to, whoops, I skipped one. Anon user, I hit that like button. I like that, Anon. I like that. Greetings, Steph Man. Curious to get your take on Tulsi deflecting. We talked about that on RBN earlier this evening. Tulsi is a politician. Nothing that she's doing is surprising me. She has every right to critique the Democratic Party. I think some of her criticisms, though, were just not well placed. But I will say I'll see if she moves over to the Republican Party, which I think is going to eventually happen with Tulsi Gabbard. But Tulsi's a politician, you guys. You see why you can't like simp for politicians? They're all over the place. They go with the moment. They go with what is popular at the moment. Right now, she sees the Dems are not, so she's moving on. Moving on. Shout out to the Traveler, says happy Tuesday. Greetings, Krona Ursa. MSM complaining already of the disruption of traffic from the protest. Isn't that the point? That is the point. To disrupt. That's the point. Resistance Music Alliance, what's up? Says Tulsi Gabbard for president. She might be leaning that way. I don't know. She might be heading that way. Shout out to Hugo, who's a Sabby member, says hi, everyone. Greetings, Notori, since that fire. What's going on? Janice says hi, everyone. Shout out to the Win Gap. G-Up says Z. I don't know what that's about. Shout out to Kim, says hi, Sabby. Welcome back. Welcome back. There was a TV show that had that theme song. Welcome back, Carter, I think was the name of it. Thank you for the super chat, Louise. Thanks for coming to DC. It was great to meet you. I'm the old white blonde broad. Appreciate you. Nice. It was nice to meet you, Louise. Thank you so much for the super chat. It was great to see everyone's faces, like to see people in person. Like some of you, I've never seen your face because you may not have a picture on your YouTube account or you may not have a picture of your face on your Twitter bio. So it was great to see everybody. I have a lot to say about that later on, and we're going to get into that in the call-in segment tonight because I want to get you guys' take, on all of this and how you feel about it, or also note the clip with interviews from the event. Yes, I did post a clip of the Assange event that was just the interviews. At the end of the speeches, I interviewed a couple of people. So I posted a separate clip of that today, and then I posted a clip of my speech as well. But I got to give it to you guys. Huge thank you, huge shout out, because that stream, and I really cannot believe this, that stream already has over 7.8K views, which is not normal for me streaming on a Saturday, FYI. And number two, that type of content about like Julian Assange, that is usually heavily suppressed via YouTube. I don't know what pushed me out there in the algo for people to click on that. Like that is a lot of views for that type of content per se. But thank you guys for all of you who watched it. It could have had something to do with the fact that he was trending on Twitter that Saturday, but we're going to get into all that later on. Let's go ahead and give a quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. You guys are freaking phenomenal. You're doing the damn thing, and it really does help me a lot. So shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. I have 5 categories if you're interested in becoming one: members, Sabby, Sabinators, Sabsters, and the ultimate. You guys are the ones that keep the lights on. You help pay for all this equipment, really. And I don't even have the top-notch equipment, to be honest with you. But you guys really come through, and it really helps me out a lot. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And I want to give a huge shout out here to people who are new Sabby patrons. So let's give a huge shout out to Paul Leon Betts. Over here, we call them newbies. Thank you, Paul, and thank you all. Now, what are we talking about tonight? Oh, we have some interesting stories to discuss, and I can't wait to get into them. So tonight, we are discussing Joe Rogan and Roger Waters' politics. Excellent interview by Joe Rogan. Excellent interview. I can't wait to start to discuss that, but there's one particular segment that I do want to talk about with that interview. I'm also going to discuss Glenn Greenwald, leftism. What is Glenn Greenwald saying about the left in the United States? And what do we need to be concerned with? And I really like this. I'm going to wait to, let me put this over here. Can't wait to dive into that segment because he said some things that I felt are spot on. And I think some of us have been feeling that way as well. I'm also going to discuss Harvard professor exposed. That's right. That's her right there. Megan O'Sullivan. You can see her picture there. She's the one with the red hair. And underneath her says Raytheon. Oh, did she get called out? I have the videos and we're going to dive into it. And I'm not sure. I have to double check. I may have to reschedule this, but our third party spotlight tonight interview is with Gloria Caballero. She is running as a Green for state auditor for Massachusetts, but I did get the times mixed up, so we may have to reschedule that. Just letting you know. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the first story about this Harvard professor being called out. Now, I am one to tell you that I've always been for direct action, and I think that can be very strong and very powerful. And we've seen this happen with multiple movements throughout this country. I believe in calling people out who pretend to be something that they're not, especially if it is going to harm the people or the planet. Now, there were 2 activist groups that decided to do just that. And I couldn't wait to cover this. Now, one of them is called the United Against War and Militarism. And the other group is called RAM Inc. So they are climate activists. Now, something I have to tell you here before we get into this clip. So Megan O'Sullivan is a professor at Harvard University, and she teaches a climate change course. Now, so far, there's nothing wrong with that. But then you would have to know who Megan O'Sullivan actually is, and then you will understand why her teaching this course is very hypocritical. These 2 activist groups decided to disrupt her class and let her students know exactly who Megan O'Sullivan is. Let's get into that clip. I got to tell you. Now, this was shared by United Against War and Militarism. On Tuesday, we joined Resist, Abolish in protesting the Kennedy schools. Megan O'Sullivan, a Raytheon exec and architect of the Iraq War, together with former top officials of the Pentagon and DHS, she teaches a class on managing the climate crisis. And they were retweeting this video here from the other group, RAM Inc., They're known as @ResistAbolish on Twitter. Let's see how Megan took this. There's a couple of clips here, and I'm going to tell you, this had to be an embarrassment for Miss O'Sullivan. Here we go.
We can see your war crime. Megan O'Sullivan, you can't hide. We can see your war crime.
Megan O'Sullivan, you can't hide.
We can see your war crime.
When missiles fly, people die, and O'Sullivan's profits multiply.
When missiles fly, people die, and O'Sullivan's profits multiply.
When missiles fly, people die,
And O'Sullivan's profits multiply.
I would actually be very happy to talk to you.
When missiles fly, people die. O'Sullivan's profits multiply.
So she tried to interrupt them there, and she said, I would actually be very happy to talk to you. And one of the protesters was like, anyway, when missiles fly, people die. He said, let's continue this chant. Listen to this again. It's really funny. Again, this is happening in the middle of her class.
When missiles fly, people die. O'Sullivan's profits multiply. Missiles fly, people die. O'Sullivan's profits multiply.
Oh, let me see.
when missiles fly, people die.
O'Sullivan's profits multiply.
I would actually be very happy to talk to you.
When missiles fly, people die. O'Sullivan's profits multiply. Missiles fly, people die. O'Sullivan's profits multiply. Missiles fly, people die. O'Sullivan's profits multiply. Missiles fly, people die. O'Sullivan's profits multiply.
What they are saying is when missiles fly, people die. O'Sullivan's profits multiply. That's what they're saying. So if her students did not know who she was before this, they know who she is now. And here's a picture here of her. They're holding up this flyer here. There's a picture of her face, and it says Megan O'Sullivan, war profiteer. Let's go on.
In addition to her position as a professor at Harvard Kennedy School, Megan O'Sullivan serves on the board of directors of Raytheon, the world's second largest weapons developer. Moreover, from 2006 to 2007, Megan O'Sullivan served under President George W. Bush as Deputy National Security Advisor for Iraq and Afghanistan, guiding the Bush administration's invasions and occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan. Megan O'Sullivan was on the ground to oversee the Bush administration's troop surge, in which 20,000 new occupying soldiers came into Iraq. As a core member of Raytheon, and as one of the key architects of the barbaric invasion of Iraq, Megan O'Sullivan has the blood of hundreds of thousands on her hands.
So yes, what they're saying is that she sits on the board of Raytheon, and that is true. And I'll show you the receipts for that in just a second.
She directs a weapons company while teaching public policy. She directs a weapons company while teaching public policy. She directs a weapons company while teaching public policy. She directs a weapons company while teaching public policy. She directs a weapons company
While teaching public policy.
Push invade two countries. Shame on Harvard Kennedy. She helped push invade two countries. Shame on Harvard Kennedy. She helped push invade two countries. Shame on Harvard Kennedy. She directs a weapons company while teaching.
Okay, now that's the first clip, and they're basically just calling out everything that Megan has done. Now there's another clip here. Like I said, this goes on. They are like, look, Megan, we are disrupting your class today. We're going to let your students know.
While teaching public policy. She directs a weapons company while teaching public policy. She directs a weapons company while teaching public policy. She directs a weapons company while teaching public policy.
They even have a beat to it. Listen to the beat. They were on rhythm. They're on rhythm. They're on point. Listen.
Policy. She directs a weapons company while teaching public policy. She directs a weapons company while teaching public policy. She directs a weapons company while teaching public policy. She helped Bush invade two countries. Shame on Harvard Kennedy.
She helped Bush invade two countries. Shame on Harvard Kennedy.
API 501.
is not about stopping or even mitigating climate change. What is this class really about? They are funding information, a security policy for a Ministry of Energy. We will look into this on our own accord. We are well aware. Raytheon, Megan O'Sullivan's company, profits from climate change.
Okay, that's the second clip. Yes, there's more. So Megan, one of the students, basically they ran her out of the class, but they continued the protest in the hallway.
Say it loud, say it clear. O'Sullivan's a war profiteer. Say it loud, say it clear. O'Sullivan's a war profiteer. Say it loud, say it clear. O'Sullivan's a war profiteer.
War profiteer, shame on
O'Sullivan's a
you!
war profiteer. Say it loud, say it clear. Say it loud, say it clear.
Look at her. Here she goes. Run, Megan, run.
O'Sullivan's a war profiteer. Say it loud, say it clear. O'Sullivan's a war profiteer. Say it loud, say it clear. O'Sullivan's a war profiteer.
War profiteer, shame on
O'Sullivan's a
you!
war profiteer. Say it loud, say it clear. Say it loud, say it clear.
You know what's unfortunate though, too, and I do have, there's another one here. I told you this is going on. I want you to see this clip here as well.
Disaster, climate disaster, while at the same time serving on the board of Raytheon. She teaches public policy at Harvard Kennedy School while serving on the board of the world's second largest military company. Shame on Harvard Kennedy. Shame.
Did you guys know, in reference to Harvard's Kennedy School, did you know that they have a program named after Michael Bloomberg? And it's not just named after him, by the way. It's actually to help his projects and his initiatives. I'm not kidding. Not kidding. Mm-hmm.
Megan O'Sullivan was responsible for the troop surge in Iraq, a war that killed 600,000 people, 1 million people. Megan O'Sullivan was directly responsible for that troop surge.
Blood on your hands!
Blood on your hands! War crime! Megan O'Sullivan is a war criminal. She teaches now a class on managing climate change as a security problem. Raytheon profits from every stage in the cycle of climate devastation. They profit from wars for extraction. They profit from extraction. They profit from policing migrants driven across borders by climate devastation. They profit from imprisoning migrants. They profit from every stage in climate devastation. And Harvard Kennedy has hired her to teach its class.
That's a good point to point out. Raytheon here. You can see this flyer fully now. Serves on Raytheon board of directors, architect of the U.S. occupation of Iraq, profits from every Raytheon bomb drops. Now, this is important to note because, yes, there is profit here. There is money to be made. So why do we have someone who sits on the board of Raytheon teaching a climate change or climate crisis awareness course at the Kennedy School at Harvard when you're a part of an organization, the military industrial complex, which is the largest single most polluter in the world? That doesn't make any sense. Now, unfortunately, as someone who I've worked at Harvard, I know how people are there. Unfortunately, I'm going to go ahead and tell you something. A lot of these kids that go to Harvard are from rich families, not all of them, but a lot of them are from these rich families. And quite honestly, a lot of them don't care. Even the ones sitting in that class, learning about climate change, they may care about climate change, but not so much to the extent where they start to focus on the military industrial complex and the profit that can be made from it. because this is a capitalist dream. Some of them at this Kennedy school, they want to go on to work for the military industrial complex. Some of them at this Kennedy school, they want to go on to become a politician that supports the military industrial complex. That's the unfortunate part about it. Now, but the point of having the protest is to create awareness. I'm going to show you how many views this got. Well, this clip got over 17,000 views on Twitter. The point is to create awareness. Now, that is not to say all the students in the class don't care. Some of them probably do care. But the point is to create awareness and make Megan O'Sullivan feel some kind of way, which it appears she did. As she's blackballed it, she said low-key pissed. Let's go on.
Climate devastation.
Shame!
Shame! Shame! Shame! Harvard Kennedy's class, AP 501, is not about stopping climate change. It's not about mitigating climate change. It's about protecting wealth and power from the consequences of climate change, which is security, a lack of security for ordinary people who can't get food, who can't get water. So they're protecting their profits and they're protecting their power. They're not protecting the people who are being driven across.
That's right. They're protecting their profits and they're protecting their power. It's not like they're saying, let's look at how we can help with climate change in some way, shape, or form. Now, there's one more clip here because like I told you, they were not letting Megan get away.
Board of Raytheon, stop profiting off of the death of innocent people.
I told her yes.
She's looking for security. Security!
Honest about it. At least you're honest about it. He wants to learn from a war criminal.
Good job, good job.
We're just asking you to leave the board of Raytheon.
It's not that hard, you know?
Is that a difficult thing for her to do? Is that a unreasonable ask for her to leave the board of Raytheon and still teach the climate change course? Is that unrealistic? I don't think that's unrealistic. Now, there was a student here. I want you to hear what he said. There's a student here that says he doesn't care. Listen to this.
I told her yes.
You want to learn from a war criminal. At least you're honest about it. At least you're honest about it. He wants
See?
to learn from a war criminal.
Good job.
One of the students said he wants to work for a war criminal. Again, I worked at this school. I know the type of students that go there, the majority of the type of students that go there. They don't care. It's not to say they don't care about the environment, but not to this extent. Some of them want the U.S. to have global domination. Some of them want the U.S. to be the most powerful entity in the world. Some of them want the United States to continue imperialism. Some of them want the U.S. to exploit and to destroy other countries. Some of them have bought into that idea that America should and should always be the best. Even at a school like Harvard University. What are they teaching these kids? What are they teaching these kids at these elite academic institutions?
We're just asking you to leave the board of Raytheon.
It's not that hard, you know? You could just stop
600,000 dead
promoting
Rockies.
genocide. See, the fact
Who's
that
the
you are not
architect of the
listening,
invasion of Iraq?
it shows that you're not actually
Excuse me, are
willing to
you
deal
part
with
of
this.
security?
See, there she go. There goes that. Give me security. Move. Where is security? What should she have done in this situation? It actually would have been better if she would have just sat down and answered their questions. Carrie said they teach them they are more important than everyone else. There you go. Conservatives, some of them will have you believe that these academic institutions are these liberal enclaves where you can go and find yourself and your creativity. No. As someone who has worked in higher ed for over 10 years, I can tell you most of these universities are conservative. especially when it comes to economics. Most of them are conservative. That whole idea of how college used to be, like in the 70s, the 80s, go to college, be free spirited, find your inner self. College is a business today. It's all about money. That's why you don't see me working there anymore. Because I realize that it's just all about money. Now let's check out Megan's bio here. This is not difficult information to find. It's not like those activists are lying, and I'm going to prove to you that they're telling the truth. Now, this here is on the Harvard Kennedy's website. They're not even trying to hide it. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So here is Miss War Profiteer Megan O'Sullivan, Kirkpatrick Professor of the Practice in International Affairs, right on their website. Let's go into her bio. Well. Megan O'Sullivan is the Jean Kirkpatrick Professor of the Practice of International Affairs and the Director of the Geopolitics of Energy Project at Harvard University's Kennedy School. So she is also a partner at the strategic consulting firm Macro Advisory Partners and is the chair of the North American group of the Trilateral Commission. A lot of fancy big words to basically not really say much. Let's go into it further. Megan draws on her broad experience in government, business, diplomacy, and academia to shed insights into foreign policy and national security, energy markets, the transition to a net zero global economy, and the geopolitics of that transition to benefit her students and colleagues, the U.S. government, global business, and the public debate. This is not to benefit climate activists. It says it right here. This is to benefit her students and colleagues, the U.S. government, global business, and the public debate. Can't make this up. Megan has extensive experience in policy formulation and in negotiation. She is currently a member of the Secretary of State Antony Blinken's Foreign Policy Advisory Board. Between 2004 and 2007, she was a special assistant to President George W. Bush and Deputy National Security Advisor for Iraq and Afghanistan during the last 2 years of her tenure. Again, this is on their website. Here's the thing, though. A lot of times, especially if you're a student, especially if you're undergrad, a lot of times you're not reading this shit. You are not reading all of that. Do you know how many students I've advised over the years, and they're asking me about professors and what their background is? And I'm like, did you look at the website? No. They're not reading this. Rick says she's a Fed. Oh, Rick. Now, during her tenure there, she helped run 2 strategic policy reviews, one on Afghanistan in the summer of 2006 and one on Iraq in late 2006 and early 2007, which led to the surge strategy. In her job at the National Security Council, Megan was responsible for building consensus around new policy directions in Iraq. You hear that? And Afghanistan, as well as overseeing their execution. Those protesters are 100% right. Megan spent 2 years in Iraq, during which she helped negotiate the Transitional Administrative Law, which was the interim constitution of Iraq from 2004 to 2006, and conclude the Status of Forces Agreement and Strategic Framework Agreement between the U.S. and Iraq. From July 2013 to December 2013, Megan was the vice chair of the All-Party Talks in Northern Ireland, which sought to resolve outstanding in the peace process. She also worked in the Office of Policy Planning in the State Department under Secretary of State Colin Powell. Already, she's worked for two warmongers, George W. Bush and Colin Powell. Here's the other part. Megan is on the board of Raytheon Technologies and the board of directors of the Council on Foreign Relations. She is also a member of International Advisory Group for the British law firm Linklaters, a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion. Oh, what I tell you, Bloomberg. And this is not uncommon, by the way, in reference to the Kennedy School. There's a lot of connection to Bloomberg. This is what I was telling you guys. A columnist for Bloomberg Opinion and a consultant to companies. She is a trustee of the International Crisis Group and a member of the board of the Mission Continues, a nonprofit organization to help veterans. And this is how they make their self look good. People like Megan, who are war profiteers, they always got to make sure they're involved in some type of nonprofit organization to make it seem like they're actually helping out the vets. And I've told you before about some of these nonprofit organizations. They turn out to be pretty profitable for the people who own them. I'm not a bad person. I work with a nonprofit that helps veterans. You also orchestrated and were crucial in reference to strategy with the war in Iraq. You were also very crucial to killing them. She is also on the advisory committee for the Women's Initiative at the George W. Bush Institute, as well as Columbia University Center for Global Energy Policy. She was a Henry Crown Fellow from 2015 to 2017 and a Henry Luce Fellow from 1991 to 1992. You can go on to read more about her if you want to. There's information here about medals that she's won and books that she have written. This woman, everything I just told you about her, has the nerve to teach a climate change course. And that's the problem with some of these courses in higher ed today and some of these professors in higher ed today. They're not actually offering these kids any type of solution. This class isn't offering any type of solution. This is just something to make Megan look good. Share this story with as many people as possible. These are the type of people that Harvard Kennedy School is hiring and that is shaping the minds of young people. That's scary and that's concerning. I'm gonna go to some of the comments here. Megan is not having a good week. Shout out to Jay Tolbert. Good evening, Sabby. Great speech on Saturday. Thank you so much, Jay. Ashura, Sabs, did you get Chris Hedges' contact? It would be waste of opportunity. I've had Chris Hedges on and I have his contact. So yeah. Thank you for the super chat, CEB Applejack. Sabby, no Russian propaganda, please. LOL JK. JB is in the house. My comrade from RBN says almost 8K views. Yeah, that Assange rally, like you guys really came through. Thank you so much for this as well, JB. Watch them heighten security at that school so a protest like this doesn't happen again. They could probably do that. Thank you for the super sticker, JM. And thank you for the super sticker, Jed Amour. Al says Jill Stein would have taught a better course. Thank you. Why don't they have someone like that? Why don't you have someone from the Green Party teach a climate change course at Harvard? Someone ask Harvard that question. If you're watching and you work at Harvard, because I don't work there anymore. If you're watching and you work at Harvard, ask them that question. Ask the Kennedy School that question. If they care so much about climate change. I'll take that comment on Rockfin. All right. Shout out to Roger Meadows on Rockfin. Thanks for the tip. Sabs, congrats on your award. Glad you made it back okay. Worried that the elite was going to snatch you up off the street for someone doing such a great job. Tulsi actually don't want the cops to be held accountable for violating Black people's constitutional rights and claimed anti-white racism, siding with those who benefit from more systemic racism while being devoid of any concern for anti-Black racism. Love for someone to press her on that. Yeah. Same here. Same here. CR, Sabby, I wanted to introduce myself and say good speech at the Assange rally on Saturday, but ran a quick errand when the mic stopped working. By the time I got back, you'd left. Oh, well, I'm sorry I didn't get to speak to you, CR. Robert says it will be a class on how to make bank on the climate crisis for those in the privileged class. There you go. There you go. Moving on. We're going to get into our second story here. And this, I highly recommend if you have not seen this interview, please watch it on Spotify or you can listen to it. Let me go ahead and share this. So Joe Rogan interviewed Roger Waters a couple days ago. If I was here last week, I would have covered this on Friday. But I told you guys before, it's hard for me to listen to, Joe Rogan for a long time. It's not because of him. It's just the 3-hour interview where it's just two people sitting across from each other. It's hard for me to watch that for that long. Like there has to be something else happening. I need some slides or some music or something. It's just an attention span thing with me. But the audio version I can listen to if I'm doing something else. So on my way back from DC the other day, my husband and I decided to listen to this on the drive back. And I have to tell you, if you have not listened to this interview, please do. They talked about a number of topics. They talked about politics. They talked about Pink Floyd, which that was really interesting to hear about. But there's one piece in particular when they're discussing politics that I really wanted us to focus on tonight, because I think Roger Waters made some good points here. And I think Joe Rogan made some good points here as well. And I think we really need to think about the shape of politics in this country when we're talking about the younger people and the direction where it could go if people are motivated to really get out in the streets like some of our parents did and grandparents did and create some kind of change. That change is going to come from a lot of the younger people, but you have to be willing to get out there. They also talked about money in politics. So, I was like, we got to talk about this tonight. Listen to this.
But the idea of a younger generation coming up and saying, enough with this bullshit. This is bullshit. This is who we are. We are the good neighbor to rebuild the barn. That's who we want to be,
I think the young people do have good hearts and good intentions. It's just the narrative.
I don't know why that stays there.
It's so cloudy, and it's so difficult to sort out what's actually going on versus what you're being told.
Yeah.
That people.
Let's listen to this piece that Joe Rogan said here about good intentions and the narrative. And I thought that this was important. And I don't know how you make the stupid pause button go away on here.
That's who we want to be,
I think the young people do have good hearts and good intentions. It's just the narrative is so cloudy, and it's so difficult to sort out what's actually going on versus what you're being told.
Yeah.
That people just sort of lose interest in it, except for the very few that are very driven.
Let's talk about that for just a second, and then we'll continue. So Joe Rogan is talking about the fact that he feels that a lot of younger people actually do have good intentions, but it's hard when the narrative that you're hearing, the mainstream media narrative that you hear, especially if you're a younger person, the narrative is telling you one thing, even though you feel differently. And I'll give you an example. After September 11, I felt some kind of way. And so I was, a lot younger then. And I just didn't agree with acts of war. I just did not agree with it. But at the same time, the message that was coming across to me, especially in mainstream media and even from like friends, was we have to do this because they're the bad guys and we're the good guys. The US is the good guys, and we have to get rid of the bad guys. And this idea has been told for what? How long? How many decades? That the US government is good guys and we're the ones that's trying to take out the bad guys. And the bad guys just always happens to be another country. It's never us, right? But I remember feeling conflicted. I remember feeling like, I don't think it's okay for people to die who had nothing to do with this, who were not involved at all, just so the United States can say, we got you back. I didn't like that. But at that time, what you have to understand, speaking out against that was not accepted. And if you did speak out against the war in Iraq, in particular, you were kind of shamed. You were frowned upon. And that's what this whole crisis with like Russia and Ukraine, I'm seeing the same thing happen all over again, where if you're not one of the people that's raising your hand and that's saying, yes, we need to keep giving the money. Yeah, we need Ukraine to go in there and win. If you're the one that's saying, let's just have peace and let's not escalate things, I'm seeing that same sentiment of people pointing fingers at you, the same way people pointed fingers at each other during the war in Iraq and after September 11, where people were blaming the other person who actually had the more reasonable response, which was, let's have peace. You were seen as the enemy for not being for the violence. So as a younger person, I would say to someone in like their late teens, early 20s, yeah, I think that Joe Rogan's right. It can be very conflicting. At the same time, things are different now than they were back then. Now there's more technology. So younger people don't just have to rely on mainstream news. There's online news. There's, you guys are watching me, right? So there's news on YouTube. There's news on Rumble. There's also different social media platforms. They are more informed in ways that I was not informed at that time because we did not have social media. So they can see what people are saying on Twitter. They can see what people are saying on Facebook. So they can get different opinions that may be different or may feel the same way that they do, even though they don't feel comfortable expressing it just yet. So that is the one thing where I would say it is a little bit different, that they have access to information that we did not have access to at that time. Let's go on.
And very disciplined and really do spend the time to look at things. And those people ultimately usually wind up becoming activists or very involved at least.
Yeah. And many of them cling to their activism till their dying day, like me, for instance. But I know so many. And they're men that, and women that you just want to hug. You just want to go, oh my God, you're such a, you're so dogged, but also brave. And you've got such a big heart that you care about people enough to make a fuss,
Let's talk about clinging to activism. This is spot on, I think, what Roger Waters is saying here. Yes, there are many people, especially after the George Floyd protests. It was a lot of younger people out there. A lot of people's like, no, we're not giving up on this. And even after Joe Biden won, people were still protesting. Mainstream media just wasn't talking about it anymore. So a lot of the younger people, what I've noticed, they seem to be more willing to say, no, we're not going to put up with this. I am not my parents' generation. We are not going to accept this type of behavior. So when he says they cling to it, yeah, they cling to it. And what I hope is that as they get older, it doesn't dwindle away. Because as you get older, and I'm speaking from experience here, as you get older, and you may become a little bit more comfortable, or maybe not necessarily comfortable, but you may become a little bit more, it may be easier for you to just accept that this is the way things are. It can become easier for you to stop fighting. It happens. And so what I sincerely hope is that for those young people who are clinging to their activism, I sincerely hope when they do get older, when they get in their late 30s, when they get in their late 40s, I sincerely hope that they still want to have that fight. Because otherwise, like, this is kind of how we lose in a way, because it's like, then you're looking for the generation behind you to pick that up. And if everyone just clung to their activism the whole time, maybe we would have more. Maybe we would have gotten further now, right?
It makes a difference. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it does, but that signal does get out there.
Yeah.
And the people that have that signal, as small as their audience might be, occasionally that signal will reach someone else, and they'll spread it.
Are you talking about me? I'm just kidding. Hit that like button, guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so. But I like that part that he said there. Even the people who have a smaller audience, the message is still getting out there. Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, this is all right. Luckily, we've got time.
We've got all the time in the world.
Which is huge, because that jogs a bit of my brain that wants to say, go on then, if you could paint a picture of the future, what might it include? What would be the first step? You're the king of everything. What's the first thing that you do tomorrow?
You got to take money out of politics. Number one.
Citizens United. Gone.
Number one, take money out of politics. Because
number one, take money out of politics. And this goes back to what I've said over and over again on this show. For the people who want to do this progressive strategy through the Democratic Party, if that's what you want to do, the number one thing you need to do is to get money out of politics. Because as long as you have money in politics, as long as you have Citizens United, the Democratic Party is still going to be owned by corporate interest. And that's who they're going to serve and protect. So I don't agree with Joe Rogan on everything, but he is spot on here. The money, you have to get it out. And how are we doing this? What's the strategy? Who's going to get money out of, what's the plan? I don't hear no plan. Remember, like during Bernie's campaigns, during 2016 campaign and 2020 campaign, there was a lot of talk from Bernie Sanders, even from people like Elizabeth Warren, the snake, to end Citizens United, to get money out of politics. What happened to that? How come they don't talk about it anymore? Oh, because they're not running. Because they don't have a campaign. No, you can never stop talking about that. It's still a problem.
The decisions that are being made are not being made in the best interest of the people. They're being made in the best interest in the people who have money.
Quite right. Well, I'm with you on that.
That's the number one thing. That's the number one reason why we get involved in.
I like this part right here. I'm just going to go back just a teensy bit about the decisions being made.
We've got all the time in the world.
Which is huge, because that jogs a bit of my brain that wants to say, go on then, if you could paint a picture of the future, what might it include? What would be the first step?
You're not being made in the best interest of the people. They're being made in the best interest in the people who have money.
Quite right. Well,
It's being made in the best interest of the people who have money. The decisions that are being made, the policies that are being passed are not in the best interest of working class people, and they're not in the best interest of poor people. This is why, for the most part, working class people and poor people don't get out of those situations, because the policies that are being passed are made to benefit corporate interests and made to benefit wealthy people. There's a study that you should look up. You can Google it. There's graphs and charts. There's a study that came out of Princeton, and I've shown it before on this show. It's the Gillen Study. And what Gillen shows you, what he found out, is that when it comes to policy change, if you are lower income or, get this, even middle income, you have virtually no impact on policy change. You know who does have impact on policy change? People who have high incomes, people who are wealthy. That's the facts. There's data that backs that up. So when people say, you know, well, you guys are just saying things, you don't have any receipts. I've shown those receipts multiple times on this show. I've shown you the data. I've shown you the research. So don't tell me I don't do research. You just don't want to hear it. You just don't want to believe it. Some of you too busy trying to get careers in politics yourself. You may not necessarily want to be a politician, but you want to be a part of their committee. You may not necessarily want to be a politician, but if they win and they go to DC, you want to be right there next to them, being a part of their team so you can get access to everybody else. Hello. So you don't want to hear these things. You don't want to hear that there's too much money in politics and money in politics is the problem and that problem needs to be solved. You don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that the squad isn't doing a good job. You don't want to hear that because you want to be their friends. That's the difference between me and you. I'm not trying to be their friends. I have friends, real ones, and they're not politicians. That's the difference. People following that bag, which is easier to do. It's easier for me to get on camera and tell you, go vote for the progressives in the Democratic Party. It's easier for me to get on camera and tell you, yeah, well, if the progressives lose, you still got to support Joe Biden. So Democrats are better than Republicans. So you better go with the Democrats, or otherwise think of all the things that could happen. You could get Trump again. That's easy to do. There's more money in that than me telling you that both of these parties suck and leave the fucking system. That's the problem.
With you on that.
That's the number one thing. That's the number one reason why we get involved in wars that we have no business in. I mean, Eisenhower warned us about that when he was leaving office with that speech about the military-industrial complex.
I don't know if you noticed, because I sent you a stick of my show, but before we do the song Sheep, the last thing, it says, Orwell was right to warn us in Brave New World in 1984, and Aldous Huxley was right to warn us of the coming dystopia Aldous Huxley in Brave New World. And Dwight D. Eisenhower was right to warn us in his military-industrial speech.
Yeah.
I was right to warn us in my song Sheep. And then we play it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I'm really, really excited to see your show tomorrow night. But one of the things that's so cool about your show is that you have all of these messages that are tied into the music, and you have this incredible visual accoutrement to this gigantic thing that goes along with your show.
Yeah, it's there's no question that visually and sonically it's impressive, and also I use that's not my whole body of work, but a small bit of things that go back to the beginning of when I started writing songs and things. So we play about half of Dark Side of the Moon, but of course all the stuff that from Dark Side of the Moon, it was all about the same stuff that I'm banging on about now.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of it's all very relevant. But I'm very interested in what you said. I'd like to pursue that because you're so right about that. All right, what's the second thing?
Well, money in politics is number one, right? So the only reason why people would get involved in politics without money is to try to make the world a better place. And you had I think you would recruit more people that have good intentions, and you would make it less attractive to people that are just looking to make money.
Yeah.
Right. It would not be profitable. So the people who actually, this is how you get the good ones. This is how you get the good ones. If you did take money out of politics and everybody had to run these like grassroots campaigns or whatever, if you did take money out of politics, how many of those candidates would still run for office? How many of those politicians, those senators, and those congressmen and women would run for re-election if you got money out of politics? What if you took away some of the perks like getting a book deal, getting these speaker fees, these engagements that they get paid for, like $500 a pop? What if you remove those? How many of those people would still run for office? That's how you get the people who actually do want to make a difference and want change versus the people who say they want these reforms or say, yeah, they want to protect certain rights, but they take corporate money or they run a grassroots campaign to make it look like they're on your side. They're on the side of the people, but then they go into this corporate party and they go ahead and side along with the corporate Democrats because that's how they keep their career. Take money out of politics, and how many people, how many of these candidates, how many of these politicians return?
I mean, you look at what's going on, like Nancy Pelosi just shot down this thing where it bans Congress from trading in stocks. She shot down something to ban insider trading. Well, there's only one reason to do that, because you want to keep making money, insider trading.
Yeah.
You're talking about a woman who's on the last days of her life, who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, why do you give a shit, lady?
Because she wants to be able to accumulate and pass down generational wealth. I've said the same thing before. Nancy Pelosi is what, like how old? Why do you still need why do you want more and more money? Why are you against people, other politicians on her team, by the way, who want congressmen to not be able to trade stocks? Like, why are you against that? Oh, because you're one of those people that trade stocks and you want the money. How much money does Nancy Pelosi need? Well, you have a refrigerator full of ice cream, I'd say you're good. But she still wants more. This is the greed aspect. Oh, I got this much money and I want more and more and more. So you can accumulate a lot of wealth, generational wealth that she can pass down to her kids, and her kids can pass down to the grandkids, and more and more and more. And that's how you get those types of the generational wealth and those dynasties, those families. Remember, there was a show called Dynasty. It was kind of about the same thing. That's how you get that. It's never enough. Don't you see it? Greed.
Like, you talk about lost in the game.
Well, maybe because she's worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, you got your money.
Yeah.
You've got it all. Like, how are you even going to spend all that?
Yeah.
She's 80 something years old, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you're lucky, what do you got? 20 years left?
But
you
how
got
any
$200
of
million?
It's not about it's about power.
Right.
That's right.
Exactly.
I gather you spoke to Zuckerberg a few weeks ago. Zuckerberg, Bezos, Gates, I don't care who they are, they're hugely rich American oligarchs. I'm sure it's true of Russian oligarchs and Chinese oligarchs and everything. They amass the huge amounts of money because it gives them power. Then they buy newspapers and television stations and whatever, so they become part of the system of propaganda to keep us all in line.
And then you accumulate so much power to the point where you can't be touched. Look at someone like Jeff Bezos. He has a lot of money, which gave him a lot of power. And he bought other businesses, right? So Amazon, we're going to take Whole Foods. We're going to come up to Washington Post. We're going to accumulate that too. And whatever other company that they're trying to buy now, there's more that are coming along with this as well. Power. Not just about the money. How much do you own? And we talk a lot about income. We talk about so-and-so owns, or they have like $200 million, or they make this much a year. But I think it's also important to talk about net worth. And there's a difference. You see, income is what you earn. financially. Net worth is what you own minus what you owe. So for people who have virtually no debt and you own property and you own maybe your car or cars, your net worth is probably really high. And I want to give you an example with someone who may be working class or middle class. Let's say you own your car, you paid it off, you worked hard, but you owe $80,000 of student loans. You don't have a house, you don't own a house because you can't afford to save up a down payment to get a house, so you're renting. So if all you own is your car and your student loan debt is $80,000, your net worth is not much. It's not going to be high. And your net worth actually matters more than your income. And this is what I think some people don't understand that. They'll see a document that says so-and-so's net worth is $1 million. And they'll be like, okay, well, that's just their net worth. That's not what they actually make. Net worth means more. You own something and you owe little. I should talk about that more.
I actually wrote a sketch about, I know you in comedy, I wrote a sketch about Zuckerberg. Unfortunately, it's not in the show. But I'll tell you what it was, because it's unlikely that it'll get into the show now. And I was writing it about being down here. The show originally, when I wrote it, was about them up there in the cloud. And I actually had a city on a cloud floating about. It's gone now. It's now a penthouse, so it's attached to in the show. And I write about them up there, the oligarchs up there they're up there in the penthouse now. And one of them is Zuckerberg. So I wrote a little sketch, and it's about, go away! He goes like, ah! And then the door opens and a flunky comes in. And it's Zuckerberg, and he's sitting there at his desk in front of his computer working, right? And he goes, get out! I don't know if he speaks. I'm sure he doesn't speak like that, because I've heard him speak, and he's a bit soft-spoken.
Yeah, he's very soft-spoken.
But and the flunky says, "But sir, Mr. Zuckerberg, sir, it's really important. I have to speak to you." And then he tries again, and Zuckerberg's just screaming out. I think Zuckerberg at one point says, "I've told you never to interrupt me when I'm grading co-eds." See?
When you're what?
Grading co-eds.
Oh.
Good, you grinned at least. I like that. So whatever. And he says, anyway, I'm going to stop acting because I can't use up my voice. Really, I shouldn't be. And the flunky says to him, we've run out of space to store the money. And Zuckerberg screams at him, buy another fucking island! Get out! And then he throws his laptop away, and it goes through the window and comes down and lands in the Netherlands. So that was my little sketch, and I'm sorry I didn't manage to find a space for it in the show, because I kind of like it.
Do you think it's possible for someone to become that insanely wealthy and not be greedy?
No, of course not.
Did you hear that? So Roger Waters said, or Joe Rogan said, do you think it's possible for someone to become that insanely wealthy and not be greedy? And Roger Waters said no. That answers your Nancy Pelosi question. Listen to this part. We're going to finish up here, and then we'll go on to Glenn Greenwald.
Can't do it without killing people, actually, is my belief.
How so? Like with Zuckerberg?
Well, I don't know, because I don't know the history well enough.
Well, he created this social network, and it became wildly popular.
Yeah, and he's now in cahoots with the FBI and the CIA, and has some cozy meetings with them, deciding who to allow to communicate with their brothers and sisters and who to censor.
Well, we discussed that on the podcast.
Right.
Did you?
Yes.
What did he have to say about
Well, because I brought up the Hunter Biden story, because I brought up censorship in social media.
Yeah.
And he said that the FBI had contacted Facebook and told them to be wary of a lot of Russian disinformation that was going to happen.
Oh, brilliant.
Right before. I mean, this is
Russiagate. Hooray. Yes. It's even invaded our afternoon.
So I'm not going to, it's a long interview, obviously, but what they said there was really important in reference to money and politics. This is a long interview, so go ahead and check it out. You can find it on Spotify, There's one clip from it on YouTube, I believe, but Joe Rogan doesn't put his full YouTube videos, his full podcast videos on YouTube anymore. He stopped doing that a while back. And I think it's because YouTube was censoring him, which Spotify is also doing, by the way, because if you look at his Spotify channel, you'll see these disclaimers under a lot of his videos now. It's really weird. But anywho, check that out. And the name of that is number 1878, Roger Waters, The Joe Rogan Experience. So check that out. I have not seen the Tulsi Gabbard interview that he did yet. I'll play that in the background while I'm doing something else. But that was a really good video. Like, you guys, like, check out that interview. They talked about a lot. If you have any curiosity about Pink Floyd, you also want to check that out, because there were some questions that I've had about the group, band. I need to correct myself here. And it was answered during that episode. So interesting. I'm gonna go to some of the comments here, but yes, you have to pay attention to the money involved in politics. That's problematic. And also, where do we go from here? What is the youth going to do in reference to politics in this country? Direct action, mutual aid. We have to engage with the younger people. I do not want them to be swept up by the Megan O'Sullivans at Harvard Kennedy School, telling them these cringe things and pretending like she's trying to help with climate change and she's just trying to fill her pocket. Thank you for the super chat, CR. What more should we be doing to help Julian? We're going to get into that in just a second. Actually, that'll be the last story. Yeah, we'll get into that in just a second. But thank you so much for that, CR. If you're not doing so already, I don't know if you're on Twitter, CR, but if you are, please make sure you're following his wife on Twitter. That's actually how I find out about a lot of what's going on with him. I do know that she did mention recently after the protest that he knows about the protest. Like, he knows what happened. She told him, and that I think that made him feel good. So, but I'll get into that in a second. Thank you for the super sticker, JM. Bad cookies. I was called a Russian bot on Yahoo News for saying that Ukraine is on the verge of victory as propaganda meant to gain trust in the conflict to send them more money. They're coming out with all the names for people. JB, I feel the same way as Roger Waters. That's a good interview, you guys. Mr. Boric, 63 and still out in the streets. Do the damn thing, Mr. Boric. I'm proud of you. Mark Polisi, Sabs, I'm 66 and I've been ready for a revolution since Occupy. That's right, Mark. You guys see this? Mr. Boric and Mark. These are the people we need to look to. Thank you guys so much. Hugo, or do like TYT and ask for money to fund the DNC and pocket the money. LOL. Oh, you went there, Hugo, not me. Thank you for the super chat, Kristen. I'm hoping Tulsi's plan is to run Republican because it's easier to win as an outsider in that party. Everyone loved Bernie, but the DNC had other plans. Yeah, you're right about that. The DNC always has other plans. I don't know about that. I mean, again, like, what would she do? Is she going to try to change the party? Like, I don't know, man, but I get what you're saying. Running as an outsider, it would be easier for her going through the Republican Party. But I think if Tulsi runs, she should run as an independent. But I think she has to change some of her political views. Like, she's shifted. Like, I don't know if she's still for Medicare for all anymore. I have to double check that. But I know, like, her views have changed since when she ran in 2020. Jeff Bezos got a $300,000 loan from his parents to start Amazon. That should tell you everything you need to know. $300,000. Let's just take this $300,000 and pay me back. What? Moused it. Everything I say is mouse information. You guys are cute. I'll take that comment on Rockfin. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Sab, you just described my generation of X just accepting we thought there was nothing we could do. Our only protest was protesting globalism at the WTO Seattle 1999. That was it. I said on your call-in show parties, I said on your call-in show, parties where the second core rots, but the first is not necessarily big money, but who and where the big money comes from. Corporations and Wall Street. You want change, abolish and replace them with co-ops and public banks. Well said, Roger. And thank you for the tip on Rockfin Vidal Gomez Jr. Thank you so much. Okay, speaking of politics, Glenn Greenwald, we're going to give him a home run for this one. We're going to give Glenn a home run. Now, I don't agree with Glenn Greenwald on everything, but I do feel like he calls it how he sees it. You know, he's like, this is how I see it, and I'm just going to call it out. So Glenn Greenwald has been speaking about left politics in the United States and comparing it to left politics in other countries. And what he has come to, he has reached a conclusion that we actually do not have a real left in the United States. And he's going to call out certain people in particular and their policies to prove that point. Let's get into it. So Glenn Greenwald tweeted, "The problem is that there is little real left in the US. The Bernie/AOC left is all that exists. And it's a joke, totally lost and without any ideological anchor." Say it one more time for the people in the back. Can I make this bigger? Oh, there we go. Do you guys see what Glenn is saying here? Let's highlight this part. The problem is that there is little real left in the United States. The Bernie/AOC left is all that exists, and it's a joke, totally lost without any ideological anchor. I think he's right. I think he's right. Like, there's no, like, who's leading that movement? Because Bernie just leaves and comes back when he feels like, there's no one leading the movement. Bernie Sanders and AOC and the rest of the squad are just going along with corporate Democrats. They'll say a couple of progressive things here and there, but they rarely even talk about Medicare for all anymore. That started last year, by the way. Once Joe Biden got elected, all of a sudden they were pretty quiet on Medicare for all, but they were very vocal about it when Trump was in office. I wonder what changed. So I think he's spot on. He said it's a joke. I agree. Glenn, I don't agree with him on everything, but they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything progressive. Cori Bush is dancing over her new book. Their idea is just go back into the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders put out a video recently. We talked about it on RBN earlier tonight, talking about all the problems with the economic system we have in this country. He said the exact same things that he said when Trump was president. It's the same speech, different president, different party. What does that tell you about the two-party system? But then at the end of the speech, Bernie Sanders is telling you, you got to come out and vote in the midterms. We just need to get 2 more Democrat seats, as if what he said before all of that didn't matter. That's the problem with the left politicians that we have in this country. They went into the Democratic Party. So at the end of the day, when the Democratic Party tells them what to do, they're going to do what the party wants them to do. And I'm going to show you some voting records in just a second to prove my point. So there's no point of this. There's no point. They're just Democrats. That's just what they are. He goes on to say, they're just Democrats. He just said my point. They're just Democrats, never saying anything to offend mainstream liberal sensibilities or neoliberal pieties. You see this? They're just Democrats, right? This is all they are. And he's spot on here, never saying anything to offend mainstream liberal sensibilities. They don't. They don't call out Joe Biden the way they called out Donald Trump. They defend Joe Biden. They say just enough to make it seem like they're fighting for progressive issues and policies, but they're not actually doing anything. My parents always told me actions mean more. I'm going to show you their actions in just a second. Now, he goes on to say, this is an example he pointed to. The squad calls for U.S. intervention in Ukraine. So remember this? This was February 26, 2022. And he's right to point this out. Again, receipts. He goes on to say here, Democrats are united completely in support of Biden's insanely wasteful and dangerous proxy war in Ukraine. So the Bernie/AOC wing, with a few exceptions, support the neocon, neoliberal consensus, or are too cowardly to dissent. Just pretend the war isn't happening at all. Yes. This is it. They support it. Now, remember, I told you about that pledge, that Justice Democrat pledge that they all signed. One of the items that was on that list was about war. They were not supposed to support it. They signed a pledge. So when people come to me and say, Sabrina, what if we could get the politicians to sign a document or a clause or a pledge? We've done that. This already happened. Once they win and they go into DC, we have no access to them. We can't just pick up the phone and say, you know, this is against the pledge, right? We can't do that. Justice Democrats, do they even have any access to them anymore? Does the Justice Democrats organization, have they contacted the members of the squad and told them that they have actually reneged the pledge that they signed? I'm sure they haven't. Let's go on, because Glenn has more to say. If you can find even one major difference between A, not just standard mainstream liberals, but what passes for the U.S. left, and B, the David Frums, Lindsey Grahams, John Brennans, and Bill Kristols of the world on foreign policy, tell me what it is. Where in D.C. are these aired? And that's because when it comes to foreign policy, both the Republicans and the Democratic Party, they're both pro-war. And the ones who stand out and vote against it is the same, like 3 people, right? The same people who stand up is usually like the one libertarian. It was Rand Paul, it was Ron Paul. Even Bernie voted for it. And he's a registered, independent? Who is the anti-war voice in Congress? Who is the anti-war voice in the Senate that's in the Democratic Party? Now, I mentioned Rand Paul. I mentioned Ron Paul. They were not a part of the Democratic Party. Bernie Sanders claimed he was against war. You got to go back to the 70s to find those vids. But Bernie has voted for it. Who is it? Name one. Tell me. Let me know. We can talk about that tonight too. Let's go on. I mean, he really nailed it on this one. And worst of all, assuming we somehow get out of this without those use of nukes, is that the dirtiest and most toxic neocon premises have again been rejuvenated and mainstreamed. Diplomacy is weakness. Avoiding war makes you Chamberlain. Dissent from U.S. policy is treasonous. And then here is a piece here. Well, let me highlight it. This is Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, 1776. Great empires, the people who live in the capital and in the province remote from the scene of action, feel. Many of them scarce, scarce any inconveniency from the war, but enjoy at their ease the amusement of reading in the newspapers the exploits of their own fleets and armies. To them, this amusement compensates the small difference between the taxes which they pay on account of the war, and those which they had been accustomed to pay in time of peace. They are commonly dissatisfied with the return of peace, which puts an end to their amusement and to 1,000 visionary hopes of conquest and national glory from a longer continuance of the war. Again, this document, that's Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations. We read that when I was in school. Uh-oh. What did I do? How I get out of here? Okay, let me go back. Okay. So there was that piece. And then he goes on here. This could have been an article, Glenn. He really went at him with this one. Okie doke. All over the world, with the exception of the EU, which literally made it illegal to broadcast or platform Russian media, this dissent on U.S. war policies in Ukraine can be heard. Why in the U.S. is Fox the only mainstream venue that will air this? You know what, too? I have something else to say about Fox as well. Now, don't get me wrong. I still think Fox is biased as well. Don't get me wrong. But this is what he's referring to, this clip here. Here's the part of the segment I did on escalating U.S. involvement in the war in Ukraine, what Panetta and others call correctly the U.S. proxy war with Russia. For those fixated on labels, can someone tell me if this is a left or right-wing message? Let's hear what Glenn has to say.
American wars, Tucker, over the last several decades, they're incredibly similar. The way they convince Americans to support U.S. involvement in a war is they personalize a particular leader, get us to hate that leader. Oh, Saddam Hussein in Iraq is a terrible guy. Bashar al-Assad in Syria is this tyrannical force. Mullah Omar in Afghanistan is somebody we have to go and take out. Gaddafi in Libya, and our emotions get up and we say, yeah, we can't, well, let's go take out these tyrants. And then, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars later and lives lost, polls always show that Americans come to realize that they regard those wars as a mistake. And the reason is they realized that no benefits came to the United States and American citizens by virtue of U.S. involvement in those wars. So let's apply that framework here. The consensus in Washington is that we are closer to the use of nuclear weapons than at any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis 60 years ago. There is a very real threat of a nuclear exchange or even a direct confrontation with Russia and the United States. And over what? Over who governs and rules not even Ukraine, but the Donbass, the eastern region in Ukraine, where a majority of people actually identify as ethnic Russians and want to be part of Russia. And yet there's almost no debate over whether we should be sending huge amounts of money there and risking the lives of American citizens through the possibility of a nuclear war, because everyone knows that the minute you step up and step out of line, there's a horde of people ready to call you unpatriotic or a traitor or an admirer of Vladimir Putin, as I know is being done with our very segment right this minute by all.
And that's the same thing I was saying about the war in Iraq. It was the same way. Like if you spoke out against that, you were criticized. Some people were canceled. I've talked about this before. The Dixie Chicks were canceled. Phil Donahue was canceled during that time as well. So that's why I said this is happening all over again. That's what it feels like.
All those Media Matter people and other people online. So it's a really repressive atmosphere, and it's squashing a debate that we absolutely have to have.
But we're losing track of reality. If a nation has nuclear weapons and you believe even theoretically they might use them, you have to treat that nation differently. You may not want to, it may be unfair, but that's why nations seek nuclear weapons, because you can't boss them around. If you ignore the possibility that your entire population could be killed, you are not fit for leadership because you're insane. And it feels like our leaders are right there. They're insane.
I think there's almost this sense that has been purposely cultivated to believe that the use of nuclear weapons really isn't a realistic possibility, even though we have had the use of nuclear weapons in the last century when the U.S. did it in Japan for World War II. And we came very close on at least 2 or 3 occasions. The U.S. and Russia did, these very same countries, to exchanging nuclear weapons and risking nuclear annihilation, including in the Cuban Missile Crisis, because the U.S. felt that the Russian presence over the border in Cuba was so threatening that we were going to have a nuclear war over it. That's how Russia sees what's happening in Ukraine right across their border. It is madness to assume that for Russia, what is an existential war, if they actually start losing it or NATO really starts escalating as we've been doing, that the chances of Vladimir Putin using nuclear weapons is 0. This is a dangerous delusion that I think a lot of people are operating under.
Now, I have a question for all of you that just listened to that segment. Why isn't MSNBC or CNN having this discussion with Glenn Greenwald? Why isn't people criticize Glenn Greenwald for going on Fox News? They said he's on there all the time. He's on there too much. But why aren't the liberal media outlets per se, why aren't they inviting Glenn Greenwald on to those networks for the same discussion? Something to think about. Now, he has good points here in reference to what's left and what's considered left in the country. Like I said, like this is a long thread. Like he really went all in. And I don't agree again with Glenn Greenwald on everything, but I think he's 100% right about the squad, about this so-called left that we have in this country. And this is not to say that there aren't individuals that are leftists in this country, but this is to say that we don't have a left party, so to speak. We don't have a left movement. We thought we did. We thought we had a something. We thought we had a something. I think some of us thought we were bigger than we actually are. But that something's gone. So we have moved on, right? If you haven't moved on, come walk with me. Now, in reference to how they vote and what they do, I told you I've tracked their votes. So I know how they vote. And you can see this too. This is on 538. Let's take a look at the progressive members in Congress and how they vote. Now, let me, it's big enough. All right. So what you want to pay attention to here is we are looking at the House. You can change this to Senate if you want to as well. We're looking at the House right now. And I have also adjusted this. I need to do it again. I'm going to adjust it so that we are only focused on Democratic Party because that's what we want to look at here. Right. And what we want to pay attention to is how they vote with Joe Biden. So there's a part here that says Biden score, and it says how often the member votes in line with Biden's position. We are going to look at squad members, and then I'm going to show you an outlier. So first and foremost, this is in alpha order. Let's go through. Jamal Bowman. Jamal Bowman votes in line with Joe Biden, 94. Let me make this bigger. That's better. Jamal Bowman votes in line with Jamal Bowman 94.8% of the time. 94.8% of the time. Keep that in mind. You're going to see the differences here. Cori Bush votes along with Joe Biden 92.6% of the time. So you see what's happening here? Now, this is probably in reference to those policing bills, right? Let's go down. Next alpha is, I think Omar's next. Too many of you guys. Okay, here we go. Omar. M-O. Omar. Or actually, AOC comes before her. AOC votes in line with Joe Biden 93.7% of the time. Ilhan Omar votes along with Joe Biden 94.8% of the time. Let's take a look at Ayanna Pressley. Ayanna Pressley votes along with Joe Biden 93.8% of the time. Are you guys seeing a pattern here? Let's go on to Katie. You're not really one of them. Katie Porter's not really one of them. Let's go down to Rashida Tlaib. So Rashida Tlaib, where'd she go? Rashida? Oh, there she is. Okay. That is not an alpha word. Torres does not come before. Anyway, Rashida Tlaib votes along with Joe Biden 93.6% of the time. I hope you guys are tracking this with me. I think, Eric, did you put the link? Oh, you did. Okay. Yeah, Eric put the link in the chat. This is 538. Okay. Now, I want to show you an outlier. Let's find that little guy. I don't want to call him a little guy. That doesn't sound right. You see this guy right here? This is Kurt Schrader. You may not be familiar with him. Kurt Schrader votes along with Joe Biden 92.8% of the time. Why is that important for you to know? Kurt Schrader is not a progressive Democrat, was not a Justice Democrat. He's actually a corporate Democrat. He takes money from Blue Cross Blue Shield. I've already looked this up. Now, he's a representative out of Oregon. He's corporate. Why is Kurt Schrader voting along with Joe Biden less than the members of the squad? Anyone? 92.8%. That's Kurt. If you're watching and you live in Oregon and you know Kurt, this is something you might want to know. 92.8% of the time. Again, I just told you, who did we just look at? Rashida Tlaib. Rashida Tlaib was, oh, it jumped on me. Rashida Tlaib was 93.6. That was higher. Ilhan Omar. I'm not going to take you guys back through all of them, but I'm just trying to make a point. We skipped her too. Shoot. Where's Jamal Bowman? You know he has one of the highest ones. Jamal Bowman, 94.8%. So what? What? The only one that has the lowest is Cori Bush. And I bet you, like I said, I think that dealt with those policing bills. Ayanna Pressley, she's the other one. Let me scoot down. There she is. Ayanna Pressley, 93.8%. Again, also the policing bills. Okay. So for the people who say I don't show receipts. Now, we're going to go back up again and we're going to go back to this Kurt guy, whoever he is. Like I said, I don't hear about him. Kurt Schrader, 92.8%. And then we'll go back to AOC. Sorry, it moves kind of fast. Whee! Okay, here we go. AOC, 93.7%. Ilhan Omar, 94.8%. Why is Kurt Schrader voting along with Biden less than the squad? So please tell me how they're fighting for us. There you have it. There it is. I'm going to go to some of the comments really quick. Thanks for the super chat, Roger. Oh, you jumped on YouTube. There was a rock before the last one you read. Also, Tosi might be revealing who she really is. Typical politician. Time for the mission. Time for the ballot. The mission BI. Ballot initiative. Okay, I'll get that one. Thanks for the super sticker, JM. Brothwaite. Everyone listens to Mama Bear. You got right. Apparently not so much Kurt, though. Thank you for the super chat, Delthea. You can send 535 Democrats to DC in January, And in the next election, those 535 Democrats will be campaigning on what we could do if you send 2 more Dems to DC. Bingo. Bingo. Oz. Hey, Oz is here. Kurt lost his primary. Oz, I take it you know who Kurt is. Oz said Kurt lost his prom. There you go. See what happens when you do your own thing? You lose. They put people up against you. They put money up against you. I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Yes, Sabby, despite attempts at government crackdowns, not only is news and info being democratized, while simultaneously legacy media is fighting to keep afloat. I saw on another show, a monologue in agreement with you did a segment on how the only thing keeping legacy media afloat is cable and satellite subscriptions. Once the last cord is cut, that is it. Yeah, I know, right? I haven't had cable in years. It's too expensive. Xfinity is expensive. I'm sorry. Thank you for the super chat, Dave. Glenn is right about elected leftists. In fact, it's worse than he says, especially the Congress situation and government as a whole. But there is an underground left resistance that is pretty large right now. It is mixed, but maybe I call in to make a comment on that. I'd love to hear from you tonight, Dave. That would be good to hear. Def. All right. So tonight's call in discussion. What's that guy cut my cable in 2007? Shit's expensive. Right. They trick you. They trick you because they're like, oh, you can start off your package with $69.99 for the first 6 months. And then after the first 6 months, then you get the next bill. And all of a sudden it's jumped up from $69.99 to like $79.99. And you're like, okay, that's only $10 more. So I can deal with that. Then the next thing you know, the next 6 months go by. All of a sudden, it's jumped from $79.99 to $140. How did it make that big jump? Sorry, Xfinity. Sorry, everybody else. All these other cable networks. I couldn't do it. I have YouTube TV, and the only reason I have YouTube TV is for sports. That's it. That's it. If it wasn't for sports, I wouldn't have that either because most of the time I watch Netflix or Hulu or YouTube. Just keeping it real. $140. Get out of here. All right, guys. So Saturday, yes, I was at the Assange March. It was awesome. All of the activists that put this together, shout out to Misty and Suzanne, the doctors for Assange. There are so many people. There were about 200 people that came, and Misty and Medea Benjamin both said they've never had a crowd that large at the DC Assange marches. So that was good news, right? So I want to show you this little clip here from the march when we were, carrying around the Free Assange, the yellow fabric. By the way, I don't know where they got that fabric from, but that was a long piece of fabric. I wonder how much that cost at Joann's. I don't know. But anyway, we were carrying around this. I have a clip from that and another clip I want to show you. And this is what we're going to talk about tonight. But I do want to show you these clips. So if you didn't get to see the live stream, you're probably like, what is she talking about? So let's go ahead and show you this one first. It was a great time, guys. I really had a great time. You're welcome. Look at all the people, guys. There's me. I was like, don't leave me. I'm right here. I was trying to do the camera and that at the same time. Didn't work out. So I gave the phone. I gave my husband's phone to Suzanne and she captured the rest. Look at all the people, guys. This is the Department of Justice. It's a big building. There's Colin. You gotta love it, guys.
Beautiful. Hey!
So that's just one clip. And if you follow Misty on Twitter, she has a lot of clips. And I'm gonna just play again. She has a lot of clips. And also Ford Fisher has a lot of clips as well. So follow him. And then I also want to show you the event in London, which had over 5,000 people around the parliament. I kid you not. Freaking amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this clip. Shout out to London Assange activists. 30 formed a human ring around Parliament. I'm going to play this clip for you really quick. I will warn you, if you have, if you get dizzy easily or if you have vertigo, I do want to let you know that this is a fast moving clip. So I'm just letting you know that up front, because I don't want you to watch this and be like, whoa, start getting dizzy and stuff like that. So this is a pretty quick one though. But look at all of the people that came out in London.
Free Julian Assange.
Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange.
All those people?
Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange.
Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange.
Americans.
Six different people.
Look at all those people, over 5,000 guys. I know, it's crazy. I know, Quantum. I know. I said the same thing when I first saw this. Like, good Lord. Woo! They got reggae going. Good Lord.
Always pays it. Go pays
Whew. Look at this.
Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange.
And I used to think the club lines were long when I was an undergrad. Club lines have nothing on this.
Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange. Free Julian Assange.
That was freaking awesome as well. And then the other thing I wanted to point out that I think you do need to know, where was mainstream media, right? So it turns out that Fox News, or one of the reporters from Fox News, was actually at the DC event. I don't know who he was in the crowd. He might have been sitting back kind of low key. I don't know, but he actually covered it. So Fox News did cover it, but MSNBC and CNN did not cover it. So it says here, Fox News covered the DC and London Assange protests. CNN and MSNBC ? That was me. And I was like, yeah, well, where y'all at? Like, why were you not there? And I'm not going to read the whole article, but I just want to show it to you. Julian Assange supporters protest against U.S. extradition in London, DC, crucial that we fight. And they even had statements here from people. So that was all of us there at the Justice Department. And they put up a video here of the wall surrounding London. And there's quotes from people here. Here's a quote from Spike Cohen. He was there at the DC one. And he goes on to say Julian wasn't trying to help dictatorships. He was trying to stop the U.S. from becoming one. And that's why they wanted him in jail. So they got quotes from people. They got quotes from Eliza Blue, who also spoke at the D.C. one as well. Again, that's D.C. So again, they quoted Jill Stein. And there's the truck. That's the Hands Off Assange truck that was driving around the block as well. So again, I do think it's important that I do point that out, that Fox News did cover it. That's crazy. And some people in independent and left independent media did not cover it. Some people in left independent media that have the resources and the means and the money did not cover it, did not promote it, did not share it, did not mention it at all. And that's terrible because this affects them too. They think their voices are going to be safe. Oh, that's right. They do, because they're taking more of a corporate stance. They're going more along with corporate media. So they'll probably be okay. Now, there was another thing that did happen. You guys did remind me about this because I almost forgot to share it with you myself. But some of you had already said congratulations, but I do want to share it with you guys. But we are going to talk about that rally tonight. There were a lot of speakers, you guys. Again, like I said, please follow Ford Fisher because he captured a lot more than I was able to capture. This is who you need to follow. Let me put this up here for you. Because Ford, where is he at? This is Ford Fisher, you guys. So he got a lot of Assange stuff. And also, Jimmy covered this too, by the way. But he got a lot of Assange stuff. If you just, I don't know what the puppy's about. But if you just see, he got the speech from Chris Hedges. And I have all of this too, like on my stream. But like I said, Ford has an actual camera. So his video quality is going to be better than mine. Another thing that happened that day too is that the women's rally was also that day. So just keep that in mind as well. So there was a women's march as well. And it looks like Ford covered that too. I don't know how Ford was in two places at once. He must have had a friend. But yeah, he covered a lot of it. So follow him. I think he created a thread because there's Kevin Gostola, John Carriaco was there, Dan Cohen, Matthew Ho was there. Like there was a lot of phenomenal speakers, you guys. If you haven't seen that live stream, check it out on my channel. If you did see it on my channel, check it out on other people streamed it too. So like Frank Analysis streamed it, Indie News Network streamed it. You'll want to check out their streams too, because people got different angles. Like I was positioned in one spot and then I had another phone in the stream where Eric was going around and getting video footage of people in the crowd. But other live streams, like I've looked at some of them, they got different angles. So definitely check that out as well. I told you guys I was going to show you something. Oh, the award. I got a surprise at the Assange rally. I was not expecting this, but I'll share this with you guys. If you haven't seen it, I was going to put this on the community tab, but that did not happen. I guess I haven't made it to that point yet. I'm still a little loop. Here we go. Let me share. I got back from DC last night, so my brain is a little foggy, guys, and I apologize for all of that. It was cool. I met Chuck Modi. Like, again, you'll see all this on the live stream. A subscriber made this free Assange shirt for me. Like, this is so cute. I don't know what else to say, but that's not what I'm looking for. There's the picture of some of us that were speakers. There's Chris Hedges. There's me. There's Dan Cohen. There's Matthew Ho. There's John Carriaco. And then that's just a museum. Sorry. There's another picture. There's Reverend Annie. She was a former Black Panther. She was also a speaker. There's Randy Credico. This is what I was going to show you guys. So I did win an award, and I just want to say, holy crap, I was not expecting this. So I said, got a surprise at the Assange rally today. Thank you. That's the Women's Institute for Freedom of Press for this 2022 Women and Media Award. I'm so humbled. So I was not expecting this. They contacted me the night before to let me know that I won. And that's me with some of the members there holding the plaque. And there's the plaque and there's my little namey. So it says Women 2022 Women and Media Award presented to Sabrina Salvati. And again, that's the Women's Institute for Freedom of the Press. Definitely check them out, you guys. They are top notch. They do great work. But yeah, I wanted to share that news with you guys. So I'm super excited. Like, wow, I never expected that. I did not. So that made me feel like, oh, snaps. That made me feel really happy. That was really sweet. But the call-in episode. Oh, thank you, Omar. That's so sweet. And shout out to all of you that watched the stream. I still can't believe we have as many views as we do. I think when Eric checked it earlier today, I think it was 7.8K views. That's crazy because I streamed on a Saturday. Saturday is not a good streaming day for me. And then also the content. Usually Assange content is heavily suppressed on YouTube. So I think the fact that he was trending on Twitter that day really did help. But I got a lot of views from that stream. I did not expect that, but you guys really came through and that really made me feel good because that showed me that when people say that people don't care about the issues, that's not necessarily the case. You guys showed me on Saturday that you really do care about the issues. And I met some of you in person on Saturday. It was so great seeing you and meeting your faces. You guys are freaking awesome. And if I didn't get a chance to talk to you, I apologize. Because I was busy and I was kind of all over the place. Hopefully in the future, I can get an actual camera when I go on the ground and I won't be going all over the place and unhooking things and hooking things back up and asking if my battery on my phone is charged. So that's for the future. But thank you guys so much for Saturday. I'm going to take a quick break. Then we're going to go into the call-in segment and do the damn thing. And I want to hear from you guys. So Eric, I'm ready whenever you are. And I'll have to adjust the time on the call-in.
Oh, yeah. All right. How's everybody doing? Justice, how's everybody doing on this Tuesday night? Unexpected, but I think very good. Turn that up. Very good, cool call-in night. We're going to be talking about Hands Off Assange recap. Yeah, it was really cool, really fun time to be out, being out there. Hey, Lawrence. Hey. Hopefully we'll hear from some of you on the call-in now. We got a few chats here to read before Sabby comes back for the call-in, which you can either click on the link, which I believe is posted as what do they call that? The sticky chat at the top, or you can do the call-in app on your phone. All right, let's see. We had another good one here from Mouse Edit. Sabby only watches ads on CJ show. Yep. Let's see. We had this was interesting from Delthea saying that's the Justice Department where my papa used to work, and I know someone else asked her in the chat about that, and later she posted my papa was a federal policeman. His beat was the DOJ in the Hoover building when the SCOTUS went in session. That's how I met Thurgood Marshall, which is very cool. And hopefully we'll hear from Delthea in the call-in. We got a good chat here from Lawrence Johnson. Repeal the damn Espionage Act. Yeah, it's kind of amazing that this thing is even on the books, and it should be such a no-brainer and a just a thing that everybody out there who isn't a tool of the oligarchy should just be calling for that. It's kind of low-hanging fruit, and yet you don't hear Democrats calling for that. They'll support a bill or put out a bill making like some adjustments to the Espionage Act, and then they'll act like they're big heroes for doing that. From Desert Mantis, Hedges, Kyriakou, Salvati. How do you beat that lineup? Indeed, it was an awesome lineup out there. And I also recommend people, if you haven't seen it, to check out the clip that we posted today with Sabby doing interviews after the event, because those were really good. Also, we had the handheld mic going, which in those environments helps a lot. The handheld mic, and you can get those fairly cheaply too. I talked briefly too with John Kyriakou, and I'm really impressed with that dude, and really just seems like one of the really good ones out there. And thanks for this super sticker from JM, coming in once, and he came in twice with super stickers, so thanks for those, JM. So let's see, what did I want to mention here? Well, one thing was that guy, that Kurt, that Oz chimed in saying that he was that he had gotten primaried out, and he was also a guy that voted with Biden less than the squad, the so-called lefties. I think what's probably going on with that, and what goes on with some of these Congress critters, is that they're actually to the right of Biden, and like, believe it or not, Biden's like too far left for them, and so they're actually voting in these things against him, but only on like right-wing things. I think there's a bit of that going on. Won't be happening with them, and just in general, I feel like what we need to be doing is just to stop framing things in terms of left and right, and framing things in terms of up and down, in the class economics and the billionaires versus the rest of us. And I think when you start doing that, things become a lot more clear. And for anyone just joining us or not sure what's going on, Sabby's on a little break. This is still Sabby Sabs show, and she'll be back on shortly. The other thing that occurred to me during the show when we were showing the Harvard protests is we had some people in there saying, what's the point of this protest? Is it really going to move these students and the whole bit? And I mean, the first thing I wanted to say is, if people are unhappy with the protests or who they're aimed at or whatnot, then, or how they're accomplished, how they're done, people can feel free to organize their own protests and show us how it's done if they think people are doing it wrong. So I figured I would just throw that out there. But in general, I think a protest like the Harvard one, especially where it's filmed, is just really good to just expose these people for just the real ghouls that they are. I mean, this Megan woman was pretty incredible in her evil tree, whatever you want to call it, and I'd like to see us make these protests really become the norm, and just whenever these ghouls dare to show their faces out in public, whether they're Raytheon board members or members of Congress who support war and all this stuff, is let's get in their faces. Let's make them uncomfortable. There's a heck of a lot more of us than them, and I think that's part of what we need to be doing. And then there's also the idea of what these protests are for. What are they? And the way you answer that is then you protest to your list of demands, to the things that you're going after, and these demands need to be real stuff. They need to be not just compromises. So I'd say don't protest for Medicare for all. Protest for full nationalized health care. Don't be out there just saying end Citizens United. I mean, you should be out there saying, pass a constitutional amendment that says corporations are not people, money is not speech, and just go and do the real deal. The Rogan interview was interesting because he comes out sometimes with some based stuff about money in politics when he's asked what's the big problem, the money in politics, and but then I think they managed to get him caught up in this stuff about woke, not woke, this stuff about left, right, and whatnot, and then they get him and guys like him gymmed up about those things, and then they lose the focus on the where it really should be, on things like the money, what's really doing, and things like censorship. And then that brings us back to Assange, in that that's really where the focus should be, on things like that. And then one of the things, let's jump this around. And one of the things, I don't know if you saw, Sabby, you see Adnan Sayan got the full charges dropped.
On who? What?
Adnan Syed.
Oh,
the
yeah.
serial one. So
yeah.
The prosecutor, Marilyn Mosby, I guess the DNA tests came in and exonerated him just completely, actual innocence, go figure. And he's a free man. It's done.
That's right.
That only took 23 years, right?
All right, guys.
All right, good deal. Carry on.
Yeah, we're going to transition over to the call-in segment. So tonight's discussion is episode 45, Hands Off Assange recap. Let's chat about the Hands Off Assange rally in DC and London. We were able to get Assange trending on Twitter, so hopefully this message has reached more people. The rally in DC was great. How do you feel about Assange and John Bolton calling him a criminal? So this is your chance to be heard on this particular issue. I'm doing something a little bit different tonight. I am going to start with actual intro music. You guys have been asking me to do that. I'm going to play it through the speaker because I have Android and there is no soundboard option for Android, only for iPhone on call in. And we'll go ahead and get started. So guys, if you haven't hit the like button, go ahead and do that. That helps with the algorithm. And other than that, guys, have a good night. I'm off tomorrow. It's Wednesday. I'll be back on Thursday. You know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.